All right, ready to dive into Think and Grow Rich.
Absolutely, let's do it.
You know, this book's been a bestseller for like almost a century.
Yeah, and for good reason, right?
Totally. It's not just about, manifesting a garage full of sports cars. It really digs into what makes people successful, period.
It really does. It gets to the core of achievement no matter what your goals are.
Right, exactly. And from the excerpts you sent, sounds like you're ready to put Hill's wisdom into action.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to see where it leads.
So, first things first, what struck you about the book's background? Because this wasn't just Hill, like jotting down inspirational quotes,
I'm
right?
definitely not. I mean, think about it, 25 years.
25 years of research.
25,000 success stories. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah. He was basically playing detective with the secrets to success.
He was.
Yeah.
Analyzing patterns, trying to crack the code of achievement.
So it's less about like wishing for a lucky break and more about understanding what causes those breaks to happen.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so powerful, It's actionable.
It is. Speaking of action, what about that story with Edwin Barnes?
Oh, Barnes, yeah. Talk about determination.
The guy was dead set on working with Edison. Not even for him, with him.
I know, right? Imagine having that level of certainty, like hopping on a freight train just to get your shot.
That's some serious hustle.
It is, and that's what Hill's talking about, that burning desire.
Okay, so Barnes gets to Edison, now what? Because desire alone doesn't cut it, right?
Definitely not. And that's the key takeaway here. Barnes didn't just stand there starstruck, he had a plan.
Okay, so he was prepared.
He presented himself as a future partner, someone essential to Edison's vision.
Bold move. Did it work?
Hill says it was the deciding factor. See, Barnes understood this thing Hill calls definiteness of purpose. It's not enough to want something. You need a crystal clear picture of it.
And the guts to go after it.
Exactly.
So showing up is just step one. You got to come prepared, show your value, how you fit into the bigger picture.
100%. It's like that whole saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Right, exactly. And that reminds me of how Hill talks about having a plan, not leaving success to chance. Like, he uses the example of U.S. Steel, right?
Oh, yeah. The story of U.S. Steel is a perfect example of that.
Because that whole thing came about because Charles Schwab basically just gave one heck of a speech.
He did. It's amazing, isn't it? One incredibly persuasive presentation to J.P. Morgan, one of the richest guys at the time.
And bam, U.S. Steel is born.
Pretty much. It shows that having a solid plan, a clear strategy is essential.
It's not enough to just think, ooh, I want to be rich.
Nope, you gotta have a plan.
Got it. You have to visualize it almost.
Exactly. And that's where Hill gets into the power of the subconscious mind, which he calls autosuggestion. You're constantly feeding your mind with positive affirmations and visualizations of your goals.
So, like, training your brain to expect success. Did he have any specific techniques for doing that?
Oh, absolutely. He was big on writing down your desires, really picturing yourself achieving them and repeating it.
Okay, so it's like not just a one-time thing. You have to make it a habit.
Exactly. Like exercise for your mind, basically.
Interesting. Because we all know athletes use visualization to improve their performance.
Exactly. You're priming your mind for success in the same way.
Makes sense. He wasn't the only one who believed in that, right?
Oh, no, not at all. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, huge believer in this stuff.
Interesting. So we're talking less about wishing upon a star and more about consistent mental practice.
Definitely. It's about taking control of your thoughts and using them to shape your reality.
But Hill goes beyond just the subconscious, right? He also talks about this sixth sense, which sounds kind of mysterious.
A little bit, right. But it's not as mystical as it sounds. Hill's talking about developing your intuition.
So it's not about like predicting lottery numbers or anything.
Not exactly. It's more about that gut feeling that guides you, not just toward wealth, but a deeper understanding in life.
So he's saying there's this whole other level of awareness that we can tap into.
Exactly. It's about being in tune with yourself, listening to that inner voice.
Which I imagine is easier said than done, right? Because life's kind of noisy.
You got it. It takes effort, for sure.
And speaking of things that make life a bit tougher, Hill doesn't shy away from the fact that fear can mess us up.
Oh yeah, he gets real about fear.
He dives deep into those 6 basic fears that hold people back. Poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death.
It's like he's covering all the bases there, huh?
He is. And while all of those are important, did you notice how Hill seemed particularly concerned about the fear of poverty?
Oh, absolutely. He considered it a major creativity killer.
Which makes sense. If you're constantly worried about scarcity, it's got to be hard to think big and take risks.
It's like that fear just kind of constricts everything.
So what was his advice on dealing with that fear?
He hammers home the point that it's not just about lacking money, it's a mindset.
So it's not enough to just try and make more money. You have to address that underlying fear.
Exactly. He describes the symptoms of that fear so vividly. Indecision, doubt, worry, even like physical problems like indigestion.
Wow, fear impacting your digestion. That's wild.
Right. It shows how deeply it can affect us.
So is he saying we should all ignore our finances and just like hope for the best?
No, not at all. It's more about being aware of how that fear might be influencing your decisions. Are you playing it too safe? Are you avoiding opportunities because deep down you're scared of scarcity?
So it's more about self-awareness than denial. Gotcha.
Exactly. It's about understanding those deeper motivations. It's like he's saying, look, you're going to stumble, you're going to face setbacks, but it's how you respond that matters.
It's that resilience factor. Got to be able to bounce back.
Exactly. And each time you do, you learn something, you adapt, you get stronger.
You come back swinging.
Exactly.
So each setback, it's like not a full stop. It's more like a comma.
I like that. A chance to catch your breath and rethink your approach.
Re-strategize. But Hill wasn't all about just like powering through, right? He also talks about the importance of mastering your mind, really understanding your strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, absolutely. He even had this whole list. 30 major causes of failure.
All right.
30. It was his way of encouraging people to be honest with themselves.
So it's that whole self-awareness thing. Got to identify those blind spots.
Exactly. Are you procrastinating, surrounding yourself with negativity? Those things can sabotage even the most talented person.
So you can have all the desire in the world, but if you've got these like internal roadblocks,
you're going to hit a wall eventually.
Exactly. And this might sound a little out there, but remember how we were talking about this sixth sense thing earlier?
Yeah, Hill's whole thing about intuition.
Right. How does that play into all of this? Because it seems like mastering your mind goes beyond just logic. Right?
Absolutely. And that's where Hill gets into this idea of tapping into something deeper, that gut feeling that goes beyond rational thought.
So it's less about like having some kind of supernatural power.
Right. It's not about predicting the future.
And more about like honing your instincts.
Exactly. It's about learning to trust that inner voice.
Did he give any practical advice for how to actually develop that sixth sense?
He stressed the importance of self-reflection, making time for quiet contemplation, you know.
So like meditation, journaling, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Creating space in your life for stillness, because he believed that when you quiet the noise of the outside world,
that's when you can actually hear your inner voice.
Exactly.
Which I'm sure is easier said than done for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. Especially these days.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with information stimulation. Makes it hard to even hear yourself think sometimes.
Tell me about it. And it makes you wonder, like, how much wisdom we're missing out on because we're just so distracted.
Right. Drowning in the noise.
Exactly.
And look, it's easy to talk about, positive thinking, trusting your gut, but that gets a lot harder when fear comes knocking. And Hill doesn't pretend otherwise. He goes right for those 6 basic fears, right?
He does. He really breaks them down.
Because it's not enough to just be like, don't be afraid. Gotta understand what you're dealing with.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right? And you can't overcome something if you don't understand it.
So he lays out those fears: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. And then what?
He digs deeper. Where do these fears come from? What are the symptoms? How do they show up in our lives?
And importantly, how do they mess with our success if we let them?
Exactly, because knowledge without application is kind of pointless.
It's like reading a cookbook and then never actually cooking anything.
Right. What's the point?
So he gives us this whole framework for understanding these fears. But what I find interesting is he doesn't treat fear like it's this thing to be ashamed of.
That's what I appreciate about his approach. He's not about denying fear or pretending it doesn't exist.
He's like, look, it's a natural part of being human.
Exactly. But it doesn't have to control you.
So it's about how you respond to that fear, not whether or not you feel it.
100%. And he offers some really practical techniques for overcoming those fears.
Like what? Give me an example.
Affirmations, visualization, surrounding yourself with supportive people.
So it's that idea of taking control, right? Actively choosing how you respond instead of just letting fear call the shots.
Exactly. He's all about empowering you to take charge of your thoughts and your emotions.
Which is a process. It takes time and effort.
It does, but like anything worth having, it's worth working for.
And that makes me think about how Hill also talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people.
Ah, yes. His concept of the mastermind, brilliant, isn't it?
So it's like having your own personal board of advisors.
Exactly. People who challenge you, support you, inspire you to be your best. He believed that surrounding yourself with that kind of positive energy could amplify your success.
It's like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. Choose your company wisely.
So it's not just about who you know, it's about who you allow to influence you.
100%. And Hill wasn't naive about this either. He knew that sometimes the people around you can be the ones holding you back.
It's true. Sometimes the people who are closest to us, they don't always understand our dreams, or they're afraid for us.
Exactly. And their fear, even if it's coming from a good place, can become a limitation.
So what's the solution? How do you deal with that?
It's about setting boundaries, being discerning about who you share your dreams with.
So it's not about cutting people out of your life necessarily.
Right. It's about being mindful of the energy you allow into your space. Think of it like tending a garden. You wouldn't intentionally plant weeds among your flowers, would you?
That's a great analogy. You have to be intentional about what you're allowing to take root.
Exactly. It's about building that support system, right? Having people around you who get it, who understand what you're striving for.
And who will celebrate your wins with you.
Exactly. Because success is sweeter when you have people to share it with.
Speaking of, Hill doesn't shy away from, the hard work that goes into this whole success thing.
Oh, absolutely not. He was all about taking action.
Yeah, he was big on that.
He was like, knowledge without action, that's useless.
It's true, though.
It is. You can read every self-help book out there, but if you don't apply any of it,
You're just going to be really well read.
exactly, and probably not much richer, at least not in any way that matters.
He had that great line about indecision being the seedling of fear. I love that.
Oh, it's so true. It's like that hesitation, that doubt, that's where fear takes root.
It's like a little crack in your confidence and fear just seeps right in.
And before you know it, it's got you paralyzed.
Frozen in place.
Exactly.
So how do we combat that?
Action. That was Hill's antidote to fear.
So don't wait for the fear to go away. Just do it anyway.
Exactly. He was a big believer in imperfect action. Just start moving, even if you're not sure it's the right way.
Better to course correct along the way than to be stuck at the starting line.
100%. He always said, you don't learn from sitting on the sidelines.
That's the truth.
You got to get in the game, even if it means messing up sometimes.
Embrace the mess. Learn from those mistakes.
Exactly. And Hill was also a big believer in setting big goals, like really ambitious ones.
Dream big. Why not?
Exactly. But he also stressed the importance of having a plan.
Okay, so it's not enough to just have that big, hairy, audacious goal.
Right, you got to break it down into manageable steps.
Make it real. Give yourself a roadmap to follow.
Exactly. Otherwise, it's just a wish.
And that's where persistence comes in, right?
Oh, absolutely. Hill was adamant about that. Persistence was key.
You can't give up at the first sign of trouble.
Nope. Got to be willing to stick it out, especially when things get tough.
Remember that story he tells about the prospector who gives up on a gold mine?
Oh, right before he strikes it rich? Yeah, talk about a heartbreaker.
Brutal. And all because he wasn't willing to dig a little deeper.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes success is just around the corner.
You got to keep the faith, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And that's why having that clear vision is so important, Something to hold on to when things get tough.
Reminds me of that quote, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do."
So true. Passion fuels persistence. When you love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work.
It becomes part of who you are.
Exactly. And Hill understood that. He emphasized the importance of finding joy in the journey, not just the destination.
Yeah, what's the point of achieving all your goals if you're miserable along the way?
Right. Life's too short for that.
It is. Got to find that balance between pursuing your dreams and actually enjoying the ride.
100%. And Hill believed that true success encompassed all aspects of life. Your relationships, your well-being, your contribution to the world.
It's about the bigger picture, living a life of meaning and purpose.
Exactly, and doing it with integrity.
That's huge. Because, what good is success if you've achieved it through unethical means?
Exactly. It might feel good in the moment, but ultimately it's hollow.
Empty, meaningless.
Right. So Hill challenges us to ask ourselves, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind?
What impact do we want to have on the world? Love that.
Me too. It's about more than just money and achievements. It's about becoming the best version of ourselves.
And using our success to make a difference. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Think and Grow Rich, what's the key takeaway here?
For me, It's that we all have the potential for greatness.
We do.
It's all about tapping into that power within ourselves.
Unleashing that inner drive.
Exactly. Hill provides the roadmap. It's up to us to take the journey.
So good. Love it. And with that, that's a wrap on this deep dive into Think and Grow Rich. Hope you enjoyed it.
Me too. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise. Until next time.